We're doing backpackers versus grunts. So we're going to talk about some similarities and differences. We got a varied group of guys on here, and I think we're going to get into some interesting talks here. So I'm going to introduce everybody on here. We got Doc from the Hiker Trash Radio podcast. Go ahead and give us a little bit of your background.
Hey, Randall, when I was invited to come on this, I didn't realize it was going to be so adversarial. I didn't know it was backpackers versus grunts. I thought it was just like backpackers and grunts. So I'm wondering how this is going to go today. Always happy to be talking to Randall and some of our other guests here today. I'm the host of Hiker Trash Radio, formerly the John freaking Muir Pod. We're currently in our 6th season, heading towards 300 episodes, and talking to a lot of interesting folks who get out into outdoor adventure and have a lot of stories to tell.
All right. Eric Coleman.
Hey guys, it's glad to be here. It's okay to have a little bit of adversity. Makes us tougher, stronger, right? And humbles us as well. So hopefully the grunts will receive a little bit of humility after the hour or so that we're going to spend here. But I'm Eric Coleman, and I am the host of the Coleman Outdoors channel, I suppose. But Southern California boy my whole life. Spent a little bit of time as a Boy Scout growing up and going up to the Sierras as a young man with my family, my brothers, my dad, and just I really love the mountains. And I'm a outdoorsy person living in the city, although for those of you that think that the SoCal area is nothing but concrete jungles and holly weirdos, wanted to take a little trip out here and visit some real tough wilderness because we've got it. And anyways, glad to be here. Thanks for the invite, Randall. Glad to have the other participants along as well.
And you guys know this dude.
Maybe. You guys don't know me, I'm Brent. I run the Brent0331 YouTube channel. My experience is I've got 21 years, both active duty and reserve in the United States Marine Corps. Most of the time I spent as an infantryman. So I guess that's why I'm here today, is to help bring the grunt perspective to this chat.
Yeah. All right. So if you guys didn't catch that, we got 2 backpackers and 2 grunts. I'm a former grunt. I've kind of evolved a little bit. We'll get into that. But Doc, it's not going to be, this is not really a versus. It's, I think we'll find some more similarities than we will differences. But of course, we got to have fun with it. So the theme for the talk is going to be gear, clothing, mentality, and training. So nothing formal. It's just kind of a discussion. So if you guys got to weigh in, just throw it out there. But I'm going to start off with why the hell don't backpackers carry guns? We got to get the talk going. That's something that bugs the crap out of me.
Yeah, that's a common question. I think a lot of backpackers get from family and friends who maybe aren't from the backpacking community. Are you going to carry a gun out there? And I think probably the number one reason why, and Eric, you can back me up on this or not, it's extra weight. Who wants to carry that extra weight out there? I mean, we're talking about this trend towards ultralight. We want to make sure that our gear, we have people that cut their toothbrushes in half. They're cutting the extra straps off their bags. They're doing everything they can to watch the ounces. Man, a big piece of metal in your backpack just doesn't sound appealing to most backpackers.
Fair enough. Yeah. You got, hang on, Brent looks like he's already ready to respond.
I'll wait to hear what Coleman has to say.
All right, back to you.
I was just going to agree with Doc and say, yeah, it's about the weight. I'm not opposed to, defending ourselves. It's what America's all about, is defending yourself when trouble faces you. But I generally tell people that the crazy people are staying down in the lowlands. The crazy people are the people that are up there with us, are like-minded folks. We're crazy about being in the mountains and in the wilderness. And really, bears and mountain lions, probably the two biggest. I wouldn't even call them predators because they don't hunt us for the most part. They leave us alone. Cougars are in their caves and their dens at night. Bears, kind of the same thing. But if you do see a black bear here, and you're not going to get bothered by them, they're going to run away from you. If I was in Montana or somewhere where there's grizzlies, I would definitely have bear spray burning to carry that with me down here. It's about the weight savings. I don't need it.
See, my thing isn't about the animals. I'm concerned about crazy people, but there's been, I don't know, I follow most of the backpackers on YouTube, and all of them have at least one story with some crazy stalker or who's this guy? Kyle hates hiking.
Kyle hates hiking.
He just went straight into backpacker stories, and they're all like the worst nightmares. So I usually don't comment on other dudes' channels, but that's when I'm like, this is a great 2A ed on like every one of his things. All right, go ahead, Brent.
I think one of the commenters said it best, and these guys kind of touched on it. It's as an infantryman, it's weapon is your life, right? You must master it as you must master your life. Without your weapon, you're useless. Without you, your weapon is useless. So, anyways, there's that. It's a tool, but as an infantryman, and I'm sure you agree, Randall, like we're a lot more security oriented, right? Security aware. So you're talking about being more concerned about like humans, which is, in my opinion, 100%. Like, I've seen the videos with the cougar. The one guy going down a trail, and like I guess he crossed his paths with a cougar cub. And then old mama bear comes out, she comes after him, right? So you have those scenarios, and then you also have, psychopaths out there, right? We've all heard of stories of where like particularly female hikers just disappear, and then they end up finding them murdered. I'm sure, obviously it's rare, right? We all know it's rare to happen, but it could fucking happen. Just like us carrying everyday concealed carry out there in public, right? It's rare for you to ever have to use that firearm, but it is that possibility. So, and I think this will lead us into a future conversation in this stream. It's like in the infantry mindset, it's like there are things like we try to cut weight where we can, but there are things you have to take. And I think as an infantryman, like in my mind, a weapon is a necessity.
Yeah, I think one thing I learned over the years, later in my grunt years, was it is a great idea to try to limit your load where possible. So I think because I had a light infantry team leader, these are the guys that almost never have a ride. That's what we mean by light. And everything they have with them is what they carry on their back. So I learned a lot of kind of backpacker lessons from those dudes. But by the way, my PSA Dagger Compact 9mm, it weighs about 20 ounces. So you throw in one full magazine of that, like, if it was me personally, I would look at, okay, well, I can take that extra weight, no problem, and then I could just cut out on something else. So that might be where I might look for a lighter sleeping bag or something. Just an example. All right, so another thing, this is actually a similarity, I think. You watch the bushcrafters and the survivalists, and kind of a theme I've picked up on is the backpackers and the grunts. We either don't have time or we're not allowed to use a fire. So what happens is, I notice a lot of the backpackers, at least the ones on YouTube, they don't bother with campfires at night. They're worried about getting into bed really quick to get up, get some sleep, get up and get moving. And then grunts, a lot of us, like, we're tactically, it's not feasible to have a campfire. So that's a similarity I've noticed is, I'll do a campfire pretty much all the time, but it's kind of something that goes with us, but it's two different mindsets to that. So Coleman, when you're out there doing your hikes, I've been catching up with you lately. Are you doing campfires?
If I can have a campfire, absolutely. I love a campfire, but if it's a time situation, I would say it's never an issue for me. it's really about fire restrictions. And being a California homeowner like yourself, you know how how California is a tinderbox of fires ready to be made. But I think for the most part, if I'm not having a fire, it's because I'm not allowed to.
So you prefer to have one if you can?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's nothing better than sitting around after a long day in front of the fire. Just, it's part of our, I think, part of our DNA. Neanderthals, whoever we came from, used to sit around a fire after they discovered it and reflected on their hunt or whatever. So, our lives aren't as treacherous as theirs, but a nice campfire at the end of the day, there's something just real soothing and relaxing about that.
It's nature's TV.
It is.
So, Doc, you on the same page?
Totally agree with Eric. I will have a campfire every night if I'm able to. It seems like the last few trips I've been out on, there have been restrictions because of the amount of fuel and past fires. They've put restrictions in on whether or not you can have the campfire. But it's one of the great treats is to be out there on the trail in the middle of nowhere, sitting on a rock or a log, staring into the fire as the darkness falls. It's absolutely gorgeous. There is a concept in the thru hiking community called backpacker midnight or hiker midnight, and that is 9 p.m. because typically when you get into camp and you set up the camp, you've been hiking all day. A lot of hikers struggle to make it to 9 p.m. Before turning in and getting that good night's sleep for the next day. And so that could also get in the way. That could get in the way of fire time if you're able to have a fire. Maybe you just don't have the energy or the time before hiker midnight arrives.
Gotcha. Yeah, and for Brent, for us, it's security. You're training for combat or something. So imagine a platoon of 30 Joes out there having little campfires or one giant campfire. It's not going to happen. So on that note with the fire, Brent, unless you want to jump in, you got something to add?
Well, I was just going to say, I have years ago, I picked up this thing called a BCB Fire Dragon. It's a little foldable compact stove, kind of like the old German Espit stove. And they come with, inside this little foldable stove is like 3 slots for this gel fuel that they have, and it's odorless. So literally, like, you have this little tiny field stove with odorless fuel, and you can heat up that canteen cup, get that nice cup of Joe. So, but obviously tactical considerations play into that. But it is a way for an infantryman to manage a fire without giving out that very recognizable fire odor into the air.
Yeah. Plus in our world, if you have a setting like that, it's just going to create an environment where guys just lose all fucks to give, and nobody's paying attention. Everybody's standing around with their hands in their pockets, staring at the fire. So it's a pretty good way to die.
Yeah.
But I do like, noticing the similarities between the two groups. Like some videos I've kind of picked on the bushcrafters and survivalists because my thought is usually like, all right, go out. They're heavily reliant on fire, pretty much, to sum it up. So you got the minimalist kind of survivalist dudes, and it's like, well, that shelter or whatever you created there, without the warmth of the fire, you're going to die. So something like that. But look at grunts. We suffer pretty much through the night because we don't have the room, or we can't spare the weight to carry comfort items. And backpackers, kind of the same. They'll kind of have the lightest kit possible, so we're also going to be a little bit colder. So here's another interesting one. I need somebody to sell me on hiking sticks, trekking poles. I've tried them because I have tested tents that require them, and it's easier to carry these super light sticks that I have and put them together than to go out and find sticks that aren't rotten to put up. But I remember, Doc, you had me on your show last year, and that was one of the big points of contention, and I was just like, I can't do it. And like I said, I've hiked with them a few times, and I can't get into them. So one of you guys, we need to get Brent 0331 out there walking around with his gun slung on his back and with trekking poles.
Well, I'll give it a shot. I've got 4 main reasons for carrying trekking poles out there, using trekking poles. One is what you just said. If you have a trekking pole tent, you need a pole to set your shelter up at night. The other thing is, if you're going uphill, it's like having handrails on the trail. You're using your upper body and your hands and arms to help you get up the hill. So that is helpful as well. If you're going downhill, it's a shock absorber for your knees. And as you get up into the upper ranges, like myself, in age and altitude, it's good when you're coming down to be able to kind of cushion the blow. And then probably most importantly, when you have high snow years, that means there's high water years. And so river crossings, having those hiking poles, it gives you more points of contact with the ground as you are crossing in that stream or in that river. Allows you to stabilize yourself and get across safely. Eric, what do you think?
I'd have to agree with everything Doc said, and the only thing that I would add to that is there's this assumption that you're a pussy. Sorry for the language. If you carry hiking sticks, I get it. You guys fought the bad guys, and you rolled around in the mud. But let me ask, not to be mean, and granted, you guys took a lot of punishment. But how many of you at 35 years old have jacked up backs, jacked up knees, jacked up ankles? Maybe it's time to put the I'm a badass aside and try the hiking sticks and learn them. Learn for yourself how effective they actually are for you to move up that hill and actually come down. So I'd say you always will see me with hiking sticks or trekking poles rather. And half the time I'm using them to actually use as a way of the Doc is described, but I'd say 100% of the time they provide me with additional balance. Think of the tightrope walker with the big pole stretched across them. Even if I'm holding them in my hand, they lower that weight, that center of gravity a bit, and they provide me with a little bit more balance too. So that's the only other thing I would add. So don't be listening to the people out there that telling you you're a wuss if you're using
Go ahead, Brent.
Well, I had to do a quick Google search to find out what trekking poles were because I had no idea what you guys were talking about. And that's what I pull up, right? This guy, this beta male with his little beanie hat on his head. So that tells me everything I need to know about trekking poles.
Well, you know what they say about assuming.
Well, I'm telling you, that was like a quick Google search, and that's like the first image I see of a male.
Well,
and yes, my back is fucked up, and I'm sure Randall's is too. But guess what? We've lived a lifetime of warriors culture, and wouldn't trade that for the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
A lot of the problems soldiers have had, I've realized that through my studies is a lot of it is it's not necessarily just the job, but the lack of knowledge on the leadership on how to prepare for that job. Like the Army they revamped their whole physical fitness system, and a major part of that is it's 60 to 70% injury prevention. So we got like the physical readiness training, heavy core stuff, like not just a bunch of sit-ups and ab stuff, but like, real stuff that helps your, protect your spine under load and everything. So it's getting better. Like I've talked to guys that have actually been infantry for, close to 20 years, close to their entire career. And they're like, yeah, I got some knee pain and everything. That's normal, but don't have some of the back pain that I did. I was kind of cursed from the beginning from other issues, but yeah, it's a good point. Coleman, when you were out there for the SEER challenge, you were reminding me like, yeah, well, you got 70 pounds on your back, but you're not out there, backpacking for 20 miles a day with that crap. And I was like, yeah, absolutely not. I mean, and Afghanistan guys did, but not because they wanted to. And it was also, again, it was leadership. It was because they were dumb. They were still trying to wear 40-pound plate carriers in the mountains. That's kind of a leadership thing. I know Brent will beat me up on that because Marines, you don't drop your plate carriers.
I mean, that's a whole different topic, Randall, but yeah, I know I'm with you on that, right? But yeah, the Marine Corps is absolutely like that. You can look back in Vietnam and like almost every photo you see of a Marine in Vietnam, he's wearing his flag, right? Compare that to the Army, it's the complete opposite, right? Like, those dudes aren't wearing their flags unless they're like back on the patrol base or on a vehicle or something. But yeah, I just want to say, like, yeah, our infantry lives, it's rough, right? But like our gear, everything we have is designed for warfighting.
Yeah.
It's not designed for comfort. It's designed to get it from point A to point B. It's, simple as that. And I remember the Marine Corps actually, when was this? I can't remember the exact year. It was after my second deployment, 2004. Shortly thereafter, we got this new pack. I think it's called the LB. But it was like this long tubular digital woodland pack. And the backstory on this was we were told that they went to the hiking community, right? Like hikers, and we're like, hey, we're looking for our next generation pack. We're coming to you guys because you guys are professionals. We're looking for a professional pack. What works? And they literally took a civilian pack, gave it digital Marpat camouflage, and they started issuing this out. Well, here was the problem. And yes, if you were to put this pack on with just your utilities on, it was fantastic. It was a great pack. I see my signal going down, so if I start cutting out, let me know. But the problem is when we would never wear this pack slick. We always had our flak, our gear, our weapon, our Kevlars, all this shit, right? So when we put this pack on, it would like sit at an angle to one direction or the other, and it had this giant hip pad that didn't work with our gear, right? Canteens, other gear attached to our body armor. So it's like this pack was always at an angle. Great pack if you're a civilian hiker. Terrible pack for the individual warfighter that's going out there with his combat load on. Because that's how we move. That's how we hike.
Yeah, and I've talked about this several times in videos. The military surplus stuff, it's going to be bulky and heavy. It's got to be synthetic. I mean, just imagine a 19-year-old kid given a down sleeping bag, and you tell him he's got to wash it in the bathtub and all that shit. He's not going to do it. We're going to come back from the field or deployment. It's going to go in the washer and dryer on high heat, and then he's going to be cussing, when all the feathers are stuck down on the bottom or the thing's falling apart. If it survives the field rotation. But on that note, Brent talks about carrying all like the warfighter gear, like that's another thing, and we gotta. There's an alibi there, but we can't hold too much to that because we really don't have the choice on a lot of things we have to carry, which is why I mentioned yeah.
Go ahead, finish your thought. I got a thought.
Okay, yeah, real quick. That's why I mentioned in the beginning there's a lot of mission essential items that we have to have on us. So that's why I think it's important for the grunts to kind of learn where they can cut weight. Like, I don't know if you guys caught it, but I did a video reviewing this 72-hour scout loadout, Army scout loadout. The dude had an extra uniform in there, an entire extra uniform, an extra pair of boots for 72 hours. And that is legit dumb shit you see grunts have to do. And me as a team leader, I would see that packing list and I would be like, no, we're not carrying extra boots for 3 days. Absolutely not. But again, that's the leadership.
Yeah. Hey, so my thought, and I've had this thought for quite a while since, following you, Randall, and, becoming a friend and interacting with you quite a bit. You got to have the right tool for the job. You can crack a walnut open with a 15-pound sledgehammer, but why? You don't need to crack a walnut open with anything other than some nutcrackers or if anything, just a little tack hammer. But if you're going out to, backpack 20 miles or, 10-mile days, you don't need to carry a massive amount of gear with you to fight a war. And so I think that would be the one thing to remind yourselves as the difference between backpackers and warriors is you're going out to hunt down the bad guys. We're going out to hunt down the cool views and the cool peak. And so it's the right tool for the job.
Okay, so with that, if you're just a dude going out to enjoy the views, why aren't you carrying beer or something? Because I get yelled at by backpackers for bringing beer, and I'm like, dude, there's no bad guys out here. We're camping and enjoying the sunset, and they're like, oh, cans of PBR is too heavy, and I'm just like, you guys won't fucking add any extra ounce at all. I mean, or whiskey. Whiskey is a lot more dense.
I'll say this. I think, and I speak for Doc, you can chime in. We're not those. I've listened to Doc enough to know he's a weekend warrior, just like I am. Weekend warriors, if you drink beer, you're probably likely to have a beer or even a ribeye. I've seen guys carry ribeye steaks out there and cook them in the fire. So the ultralighters, we're different. Are a totally different breed than a weekend warrior.
So you're a ultralight dude? I thought
me? No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No. I mean, I like to go as light as I can.
Let's Brent, bring that back up and I'll okay, there it is. So this
is
where
I just wanted to point out this was that pack that I was talking about that came in. It's no longer used. Maybe if you're like in the reserves and some like Pogue unit, maybe they still got some of these in their inventory. But that was the pack, right? You look at that and you're like, oh, it looks like a big, comfortable pack. It's got this big, giant hip pad. Well, here's the thing, like in infantry, like we don't even use that hip pad, right? Yeah, it'd be great to help carry the pack. But here's the thing. The second we take contact, guess what? We ain't fighting with that ruck on. Like quick releases are getting hit. That pack's dropping. We're getting it off our body as fast as possible. So like I never use that hip pad.
Yeah, with the Alice ruck, the first thing I was taught was to duct tape that belt to the frame of the ruck.
Yeah.
But also with that style of ruck, if we got our Alice equipment on, that pack is going to be sitting on whatever is on your pistol belt. And what I liked about the Alice is when you have a camelback on your back, your water bladder, that it could kind of sit in that frame. And a lot of these flat back backpacks can't do that. So it'd be the same.
I will still argue to this day, Alice is still one of the best rucksacks we've ever had, and precisely for those reasons you said. Like it sits if you had an Alice belt on, right? You had your like butt pack and 2 canteens, right? And then the pad sat right above it, and then you had that. There's a gap above the hip pad or lower back pad, and then like there's a little gap in there that your camelback, if you were wearing one, would sit right in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and some dudes would have the like a square foldable isomat, and they put it in there, right? And then it was just a great pack system. And that's why it's still around. That's why a lot of dudes still use it. You can't say that about some of the new packs that are out. I guarantee you, 20, 30 years from now, you won't see those things ever floating around. But Alice fucking packs have been floating around for decades now.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to clothing. So Coleman learned why we wear certain things when he came out to the SEER challenge. Now, I get it. Backpackers are almost always on a trail, and I've seen those trails can just be washed out or overgrown or fallen trees on them. So they're not always great trails, but we have to be able to cut through brush. So we're going to be wearing heavy, 60-40 cotton synthetic stuff, some people call it duck or doomsday canvas, because you got to deal with briar patches, manzanitas, and all that junk. It also adds a bug repellent type of thing, because we can actually seal everything up. We can blouse our pants into our boots. But yeah, I remember when Eric came out to the SEER challenge, he had like his standard T-shirt on, and we were like, dude, I got a shirt to give you. He's like, oh, I'm good, man. And then it was like an hour into crawling through Manzanitas. His shit was
15
torn
minutes.
up.
15 minutes into. But again, I was trying to maintain it. It was a shtick. It was I wanted to look like a backpacker as opposed to. I knew I was going to be tore up, but it really wasn't too bad. There was a couple spots though that I still have remaining scars.
Well, it did look pretty cool that, you know, you still had your regular ball cap on and
Yeah,
I don't know, like bright backpacker colors and
no, I had a gray shirt on, gray shirt, and gray pants.
oh, okay.
I wasn't totally.
You didn't wear the orange shirt? Oh, you
bright.
okay.
That's right for the grunts. I mean, gray. That's a nice shade there.
That's what I figured. It was enough of the camo. I could meld into the shadows of the trees, but
yeah. But Randall, I agree with you on this. Long sleeves, long pants. It saves me having to put on sunscreen, have to put on bug spray. I don't have to worry as much where I'm walking or stepping or how narrow the path gets because I've got that kind of protection. So yeah, I full-heartedly agree with that concept. Long sleeves, long pants.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on this and before we started about the sun shirts, these UPF shirts. Like I reviewed this awesome shirt a couple years ago. It's so light you don't notice it and breathable, and it's got reinforced shoulders on it for your pack. And yeah, I wear that all the time for the same reason because sunscreen sucks. So what do you do, Eric? Are you a sunscreen dude? And
well, like I said, I picked up a UPF sun hoodie shirt at the beginning of the year, and I've hiked with it. I've lost track of how many hikes I've used with it, and I really do like it. I still miss the t-shirt just because I'm a short sleeve, short pants guy. I just love being sort of free and all that. I don't mind sunblock so much, but I really like it, and I get the benefit of it too. You can look at my legs; they're always got scratches and dings in it, and that's okay. I'm not trying to win anybody. I've been married for 24 years, so if that was to change, if my wife was kicking me to curb, maybe I'd start wearing more pants and more long sleeve shirts.
have either of you guys had a situation where you wished you had, I don't know, some tough pants on or something like an overgrown trail you had to go through?
Well, I think early on I learned my lesson and have worn hiking pants ever since. So it's durable, it's flexible, good protection. And I was going to point out to Eric, you could always, if you really enjoy being one with nature, there always is, June 21st every year, which is Hike Nature. So.
No. That's the surefire way to scare off any bears, cougars, or cougars. I'd get no action from any of those creatures.
Yeah, and you definitely want to stay out of the Manzanita on June 21st. I mean, that's just not comfortable.
That's right. Oh man.
So then to get into the next thing, boots. So I remember, Doc, we talked about boots versus checker shoes. So I totally see the benefits of light shoes and the low tops and everything. I got it. I know you guys will have stuff to say, but the major thing for me is like I have a pair of Rockies V3s. I think they weigh 1.5 pounds each. That's not bad for 10-year-old boots, but they're 10 years old. They survived multiple field deployments, an entire deployment to Afghanistan, including a train up in the Austrian Alps. Still going fine. Haven't had to relace anything. Haven't had to add shoe goo. And they're light for me, 1.5 pounds. That might scare you guys, but also have other boots that weigh less than 1 pound each for boots. So the thing for us is it's got to be tough and it's got to be able to hold up. So I do get the point of the trail shoes and all that, but I see these backpackers, they do a 6-month PCT and they're like, oh, well, I'm shipping these shoes to here for this destination. I'm like, why do you need so many pairs of shoes for 6 months? Like, I know it's a lot of mileage. I get that. Was it 2,400 miles, 2,200.
2650 for the PCT.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot of miles, man. But also, you see that they're climbing on rocks and they're going over this rough terrain. I see backpackers complain about spraining their ankles and getting their feet dug up into the rocks when they're climbing. So that's just we have the military. They have to be boots and everything, but that's just my perspective on it.
Randall, I am so glad you brought this topic up. I've been waiting to talk about boots versus trail runners, and I think it's special that you have a sentimental attachment to your boots, and you're gonna bring them out there because they've served you well. And absolutely, if your feet are happy as a hiker, then that's the best case scenario. If your feet are not happy, then why do it? And so, if you've got that pair of boots that is broken in and has done well by you, by all means, go ahead and do that. But I think with trail runners, you get about 500 to 700 miles, hard miles out of them, and so that's why you have people shipping multiple pairs along the Pacific Crest Trail. But they're light on your feet. I think the old expression is a pound on your feet is 5 on your back. So they're light on your feet. It helps in that way. You're not taking it off for river crossings necessarily because they dry out quickly, and very good traction. And they've done studies. They've done actual studies. So I see comments in the little sidebar here about ankle support. They've done studies and found that there's no appreciable difference between ankle injuries in boots versus trail runners. So if you can go lighter on your feet and you maintain that traction and your feet are happy, go ahead and do it.
I could never walk with a pack on with any kind of tennis shoe like thing. It just like my feet have always needed that rigidity down there. Mm-hmm. But I also have a pair of Go Ruck Mac V boots, and I think they're as light as the average trail runners out there. And for about $120, I can get a couple thousand miles out of them. That could be more of a preference thing, but I do agree on I've seen those same studies about the ankle support. Like actually, guys who aren't used to boots, they actually roll their ankles a ton in basic training. That's one of the most common injuries because they're not used to having that elevated heel and they can't freaking walk in them. So yeah, I mean, I grew up in Mississippi, so I've always been kind of a minimalist besides hiking, so yeah. Brent, what do you got? You gonna start wearing trail?
Look at Brent's face. He's ready to weigh in on this.
He's ready.
Well, it's funny because I'm just hearing all these new terms. I don't know what trail runners. I have to Google all this stuff every time you guys bring these terms up. Right, I have no idea what you're talking about. I just think the biggest contrast here is like what I look at as being awesome and for XYZ reasons would be the same reasons that you guys would look at them and be like, oh no, hell no. Right. So it's like, I look at this Atlas pack, right? Fucking aluminum frame. Hell yeah. The way it's designed, it sits above my fucking, my gear. I can sit on it, right? I can sit on an LPOP. It's tough as nails. I can beat an enemy with it. If he jumps in my fighting position with me in the middle of the night, like tough, right? And I apply that the same as my shoes. My boots. I want combat boots. I want something that I can crush an enemy's skull with when I step on it. Right? And you got to scrape the waffle off the bottom of my jungle boots with my bayonet. Like that's what I'm looking for. I don't walk on trails. I walk all over everything and everything. So that's what I look for. Weight, it is what it is. Like I get people asking me all the time on certain videos, like, "Oh, how much is that weight?" I have no fucking idea. I have what I need for the mission has gone into my gear, and that's what I'm taking on the mission. Like weight, like I've never in my Marine Corps infantry career have had a little airline fucking scale and like weighed my shit before I stepped off. It's like, hey, we have a combat load of 7 magazines. We have fucking 2 fragmentation grenades. We got 2 canteens of water plus Camelback. We got your your Ranger roll. You got your fucking 2 or 3 days of DOS for chow. Your MBGs, extra batteries, extra socks, cami paint, fucking XYZ. Like it's all going into that pack one way or another, and that's what we're carrying. So
yeah, it's like Brent, I think you hit it right on the nail here. I mean, it's all about mission objective. I mean,
Yes.
That totally makes sense. And you've got your mission objective. You have to pack for that. And it's the same thing with hikers. And I think there are so many different entry levels for hikers. You've got day hikers, you've got weekend warriors, you've got guys taking 5 or 6 day trips. You've got people doing 300-mile trails all the way up to 2,650, or even if you're talking about the Continental Divide Trail, 3,100 miles from Mexico to Canada. So you're going to pack accordingly. You're going to pack what's going to help you be the most successful out there. And if you're doing those long trails like that, what's going to help you be successful is not carrying a 40-pound pack, but carrying an 8.5-pound pack, fully loaded. And so you have to make those decisions based on what your ultimate mission is.
Yeah, I'll chime in. Like I said, right Jewel for the job, and Doc. I think the only way we'd sway Brent is to have him have a nice sit-down conversation with Ginger Balls. And if you don't know who he is, and you guys haven't been following Doc in his Hiker Trash Radio career, but a retired military through hiker. So his story, Doc, you bring it up in the show all the time. He realized the error of his ways when he decided to hit the AT and hike it for the first time, and came to the mission prepared to essentially fight bad guys, and none of the bad guys showed up, so he realized he didn't need all that extra stuff. But let me chime in on the boots and the shoe issue real quick. I'd say at heart I'm a boot guy because I've always liked boots. Do I need the ankle support? Not so much. But comes to a point in your life, my grandma has always said, Eric, don't get old, it's hell. And she's referring to her degrading body. My feet had gotten to the point where I needed to try something different. And you see everybody with these Ultra Lone Peak trail runner shoes on the trail. And I'm like, well, that weird pain in the front of my foot that just continues to pop up after, so many miles. And you go to the podiatrist and they say you got bursitis. And, here's some potential ways to alleviate the pain. Has it made it perfect? No, but I have officially switched to trail runners. I think it was last year sometime. And there has been a marked improvement in my feet over long periods of miles. I'm not so concerned with the weight. If Keen is listening to this, please make a shoe tailored after something like the Topos or the Lone Peaks with the extra wide toe box and the zero drop, but something that'll last longer than 200 and 300 miles. And Doc, for the record, I went through a pair of Lone Peak 6 and 150 miles.
Okay.
I'm just a bigger guy. They don't last that long. And I think that's where Randall, his whole grunt proof perspective is, these things don't last very long. I've sort of resigned myself to the fact that as a hiker, backpacker, this gear isn't going to last as long as an Alice pack. It's not going to, the Alice packs that were issued in World War II are still being used by grunts because they're that tough. And honestly, I don't want to keep using my Osprey pack or my Gregory pack that long. New technology will come out. I hate paying extra money for stuff, but I think at the end of the day, I'd prefer a boot that was made like a trail runner that would last me 1,000 miles, respectively 500 at least. But there's a benefit to both. I don't go out and work in the yard on my trail runners. I put on my Wolverine boots if I'm hammering in concrete or something. But again, tool for the job. Bringing it all the way back. Tool for the job.
And Brent, were you first furiously Googling their toe box and zero drop?
I had no idea what the hell you're talking about. there were too many terms in that dialogue there for me to Google. So
sorry, Brent. Sorry, Brent.
Like I said, I've evolved, man. I understand all this shit. I will say though, the minimalist community going to the barefoot stuff, like I kind of was looking into that, and then just along my studies, didn't look too good, but I was just curious. So here's your ultra stuff. I don't know if these are the newest, but we got 11 ounces for one, about 11 ounces. Is that kind of about the standard for?
I think so. Yeah.
Probably.
Let's see if I can pull this one up. So my Mac V's, you guys seeing that? So we're at 14 ounces. I mean,
Yeah, it's not bad.
yeah. So I mean, I get it. You know, cut weight where you can. So just for me, that's where I'm not cutting the weight. That those 4 ounces right there, they're not going to affect me. One thing I've talked about before is, you know, the bug repellent. We're walking in tall grass, and I mean, you guys kind of are too. You got trails with shit overgrown right next to them, but tucking your pants into your boots, dude, that keeps the slugs and leeches off of your junk. You know, the tick problems. That was a pretty big deal for me, man. I hated waking up with leeches on my junk. So
Yeah, doesn't sound pleasant.
no.
Does not sound pretty. Fortunately, I'm not living in Mississippi. We don't have too many leeches out here.
Now
That's true, yeah.
Randall and Brent, I'm noticing in the comments there's some reference to backpackers of old, you know, carrying how much weight they were carrying. I mean, John Muir was out there on the trail along with Ansel Adams with, you know, cast iron skillets and, you know, 7 or 8 books and the big heavy, you know, backpack, whatever else, lugging it around. And just because they could do that doesn't mean that they always that you should. I mean, the gear has evolved over the decades, and there's much more ultralight stuff available. I mean, has the U.S. government, has the Army, the branches of the military, have they similarly evolved their gear over the years, over the decades? I keep hearing this talk about the good old days with that Alice backpack, but I mean, have they made some advancements to make it easier to accomplish missions out there?
Well,
Yeah, but for every advancement, like every time they make gear lighter, they just throw more gear at us. So like we carry more stuff than the average guy in Vietnam, the average guy who stormed Normandy. We carry a lot more than them just because.
twice if
it's
not 3 times much.
Go ahead.
Wow.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Twice, if not 3 times as much. And it's like, you know, the Alice pack frame, for instance, right? I love it, and a lot of grunts love it because it's made of aluminum, right? But, you know, now pack frames are made out of like a polymer frame, like a tough polymer frame. You can't sit on it. It'll bend. It's lighter, but guess what? You know, I have fucking, you know, PVS 14 MVGs and all this other shit, all these other optics and, you know, mission essential gear added on that, you know, the freaking grunt in Vietnam or Korea or World War II didn't have to carry, right? So it's like, what cracks me up, Randall, you probably heard this, like they did this study back in like World War II, and it was like the individual infantryman should not carry more than, you know, this much of his body weight. Well, that shit's fucking out the window. Like, if I were to have that much gear, it'd probably be just my combat load and, like, you know, a couple MREs in my butt pack. So, yeah, we are incredibly weighed down with stuff.
Yeah, and you know, plus we were the first generation with the actual plate carriers wearing, you know, because Vietnam they had flak jackets. Gulf War they had flak jackets with stuff. Later on they came up with something, but yeah, that we added those plate carriers. You know, if you're talking about a good sappy plate, especially in the early days, you're talking about 5 pounds a piece. So,
Hey, Brent. So how much weight would you say you're typically carrying, or would you carry when you were in the field?
Dude, I don't know, man. I'm telling you, and honestly, I don't want to.
He didn't weigh it. He didn't bring out his luggage scale, and he made that very clear.
I don't want to know. You know what I mean? It's like I don't want to be on the move, like moving from point A to point B, and being like having that mental thought in my mind, like fuck, my pack is fucking pounds. You know, it's killing me. Blah blah blah. I just would rather be like, fuck it, we got to go from point A to point B. Let's get there. So
Gotcha.
yeah, it kind of to a certain point it doesn't matter. But if you look at what soldiers are actually allowed to choose, that's where being smart with what you pack makes the difference. Like to the very end of my service, I went out to the field with my Alice ruck. I didn't give a shit. I mean, I wasn't a standard grunt, so I wasn't forced to follow these unit SOPs. But I went out with my Alice ruck. I didn't care. Our company packing list would say the new Molly rug, this giant piece of garbage, and I'm like, no, I'm bringing my Alice. And the main reason my Alice weighed, I think they weigh 9 to 10 pounds, just the ruck empty.
Wow.
The newer stuff, the Molly medium, I believe, is 4.5 pounds. The Molly large is probably 5 to 6 pounds. So that's a pretty big difference, but I'll take that because I'm not bringing half the other shit they want me to bring out there either. Again, extra uniforms, like if I'm in the field for 2 weeks, I'm not bringing an extra uniform. I'll bring an extra pair of socks, maybe a t-shirt, but that's if I run out of shit paper. And you see all these other guys, they got bunny rabbits hanging off their rucks, and, modern soldiers, they really are trying to glamp. And then when you add in the mission essential stuff and you see their face, they're like, oh, my stuff's heavy. And they'll have pots and pans and shit with them. And then it's like, oh, you need to carry this giant night sight for this rocket launcher. That weighs 20 pounds. And they're like, what? But I would take the Alice ruck out because it still looked way better than the new bullshit, but also because of the camelback on my back. These new flat rucks, dude, telling you guys, we have to have our camelbacks. We can't do the little water bottles hanging off of us. So you got this big 3-liter bladder on your back, and then you try to put a flat back anything back there, and it's really bad. You can look up pictures of soldiers just sucking ass trying to carry stuff, and I throw my Alice ruck right over it, no problem.
So we cut weight, obviously as infantrymen, we try to cut weight where we can, but we have to work with what we're given, right? So how do we cut weight? Well, we're like, hey, we're going to be out in the field for 4 or 5 days. Well, I only need 1 pair of skivvies for that duration, right? Chow. Well, I'm going to fucking field strip my chow. I'm going to use 1 MRE spoon for, these MREs. I'm just going to reuse that MRE spoon and get rid of all this excess fucking plastic in that MRE. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to only have 2 MRE of the brown bags, right? One with all my shit in it and one to use as a trash. So that's how we cut.
Same thing. The same concept applies. I mean, I'm not carrying 6 pair of underwear out there. I mean, I've got the underwear I'm wearing and my pants and my shirt, and you jump in a lake every once in a while. And same thing, one spoon. A lot of if you are carrying a stove out there and you're eating the dehydrated backpacking meals, before you leave, you are repackaging all that stuff because it's way too bulky and takes up too much room. You're opening those packages up, putting them into Ziplocs and kind of repackaging that stuff. But same concepts, exactly the same.
So another thing about cutting weight, this is kind of the downside of the grunt world. We usually end up cutting weight on comfort. And so I know backpackers, you guys, I've seen you guys rough it. You'll be a little bit cold in camp. I mean, when it's 80 degrees during the day and it drops to 40 at night, y'all ain't carrying enough to be warm. So we do the same thing. You guys have to get the lightest shelters and sleep systems you can. And we usually just leave it at home, because we can't get a light one, or we can't bring a light one. So the average way, Brent, how does the average grunt sleep in a patrol base or a tactical setting?
Just on the ground, freaking in your fart sack and your poncho liner.
You guys are wearing your sleep system.
Yeah, but if you can put up a shelter, it might be a poncho A-frame. If you can do that. And we don't, I mean, you could bring a down sleeping bag out there, but it's going to be backpacker color. So you'll definitely be singled out for that. And then it's going to be destroyed, because you're going to be laying in your bivvy in the monsoon rain.
Yeah.
But that's just an example of how we have to skimp weight,
Yeah. And I've talked to a number of backpackers, through hikers who have, started out heavy, learned their lesson, really tried to cut as much weight as possible. They're getting down into the 6.5 pound range for, multi-week excursions out there. and they've learned that, you know what, I had to sacrifice a lot of comfort to get that light, and it's not worth it. And they have bounced back the other way. So they've gone extremely ultralight and have bounced back up to carry some items that they feel are gonna, you know, that are considered more comfort items, and they'd rather be more comfortable out there than totally extremely ultralight.
Let me ask you backpackers this, because it's like, you know, I've done some. I think one of the longest humps I ever did was it was 20 miles, and we had to carry our crew serves when I was a young machine gunner. And what I mean by that is, like, you got the machine gun, you got your freaking tripods, T&E, and like you're spread loading amongst our machine gun squad. And then that's in addition to our ruck and everything else. But like at the end of that 20 miles, it's like, yeah, you're proud that you completed 20 miles, but you're also proud that you humped all of that weight, right? All that stuff. So like my question to you guys is, you know, when did you guys feel more successful, not just getting there, but also getting there with, you know, a pack that weighs X amount, like a heavier pack, like a heavier load?
I'd feel prouder, you know, hauling a VW bus up to the top of Mount Whitney, but you know, it doesn't mean I'm going to do it. You know, the mission is to get to the top of Whitney. I feel good about myself getting up there. I don't need to tow that bus up there.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I mean, if you're going to some pretty cool places, I mean, it might be hard for you to understand the concept of a mountain, Brent, because you live in Texas, and I think everything is flat, right?
Hey, I've been to some places that have some mountains.
Yeah, I know you've been to Bridgeport, yeah, which is pretty, and that's pretty high up, and I've hiked in and around. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's yeah, you feel like a bad A if you climbed, you know, you hiked 20 miles with 50 pounds on your back. No doubt about it. I agree with you. But again, why? Why do I need to, you know, pat myself on the back?
Isn't that part of the challenge though? Like the conditioning your body to be able to move shit from point A to point B?
Could I ruck 20 miles with 50 pounds on my back? Absolutely. But can I ruck 20-mile days, 5 days in a row with 50 miles on my back? I guess if I need that sort of reinforcement of myself as a man, then you're going to do that. But I'm not out there. There's a balance. Yes, we go out because maybe internally we're trying to reconnect with early man or the John Muirs before, because our lives are so soft and cushy and we are pampered. But you know, I want to be able to do it. I mean, I did a 100-mile trip last year with 50 pounds on my back. If I could have cut 10 pounds off my back for that trip, I absolutely would have done it. But it's kind of hard. I'm a larger man. I need to carry some camera equipment because I like to shoot my adventures. You know, I added an extra piece of kit to my to my backpack, which is a CPAP. If nobody knows what that is, you'll have to go to my channel and watch the video.
Or you could Google it, like Brent.
Or you could Google it. Yeah, Brent, Google CPAP. Do I need to absolutely bring that with me? No, but that adds to the weight. So I don't think Doc and I disagree with the premise of we feel good when we've done something extra challenging, but there's enough challenge out there with weight on our back for days at a time, living way more primitively than we currently live.
That kind of goes into the mentality aspect. Like most soldiers, especially grunts, we ruck. Rucking is part of our fitness. And I did a rucking series, and that's how I started it. Hiking is a mode of transportation, and rucking is a means by which to improve that mode. So I've seen plenty of backpackers talk about their pre-PCT AT train up. And they're like, yeah, I'm gonna pack a 30-pound pack, but for training I'm gonna pack 35 pounds and hit these hills. And so that's basically what we equate to as rucking. You know, so like you can't, whether you're wearing light stuff or not, you can't just go out there and do 20 miles in a day. You know, maybe a 19-year-old can, but he's going to pay for it the next day out of hard-headedness. So yeah, the grunts, we got to train up to those distances and carrying all that garbage. and you guys got to train up to it too. But with the mentality at the end of the day, I mean, I love hiking, man. I do as many day hikes as I can, and it's really just the mode of transportation. So just, grunts for us, if we're on patrols or if we're doing a road march to get to another objective, that's our mode of transportation. But the whole train up part, that's the workout.
Yeah.
So Eric, what are you usually carrying when you go out? I've seen, I mean, you're climbing 4,000 or 5,000 feet sometimes in a day.
Well, if it's a day hike, it's the 10 essentials, whatever you need in case of an emergency, sort of thing. Enough water to carry for the day. I generally start out with about 3 liters, right around the 3 liter water level, and some snacks, and and that again, that's for a day hike. If I'm doing 10, 15 to 20 miles, that's generally what it is. For a backpack, though, it's again the standard things: sleep system, food for the number of days. If you're hiking in this area, we don't have to worry so much about water because there's water everywhere. If you're hiking somewhere else, you got to maybe carry a little extra water. But again, the 10 essentials in the event you can run into an emergency. Yeah, and then again, I mentioned camera equipment earlier. I just carry a GoPro and batteries. But then this thing becomes the camera for you, and these don't last more than 24 hours. So if you're tracking your hike and you're taking pictures with it, you need a battery backup for that too. So, I'm definitely not ultralighter, and I don't poo-poo those guys at all. But nothing but respect for them. But I don't want to cut out all my creature comforts either.
Wait, how much you think your loadout typically weighs?
Well, so I would say I probably am somewhere around the 45 range, and I actually did lighten some of my stuff a bit in preparation for that longer trip last year. But then I decided to add, a CPAP to the mix. If I cut that out, I'm telling you, sleep apnea, there could be plenty of other things to have to deal with in life. It's, so many of us Americans seem to have it. It's not always an overweight thing. Definitely, you could say it's big pharma pushing equipment on people that are extra money. But at the end of the day, when I started using a CPAP plus 15 years ago, I never have had better sleep in my life. And so before I got a travel CPAP, which is expensive, I was just not sleeping well on the trail. And you don't sleep that well on the trail anyways. But by adding that to that trip, that was an extra 6.25 pounds. So if I eliminated that altogether pre-using that machine for that 8-day trip, it would have been, I guess, 44 pounds. Wouldn't have been bad, but that's about average, around the 45 mark.
So you keep inviting me. One day I'll take your invite. I'll have the time. We'll do something together, and I think my pack would be lighter than yours.
It might be.
Because like you touched on, I'm not going to go out there with 60 pounds for the hell out of it. If you say we're climbing some mountains, I'm going to be like, all right.
Yeah, there's I'm going to go back to the tool for the job. If you need
I will try to bring my Alice Ruck though. That's okay. I got to try to start with it, just so I could piss people on the trail off.
Yeah, I think I may have seen an Alice out there before. Have you seen one, Doc? I see some hardcore dudes.
I don't know that I've seen that out there. I've seen people that are. I saw a young lady hiking on the John Muir Trail a couple years ago. The pack was bigger than she was. It looked like something straight out of Wild, where Reese Witherspoon could barely put on the pack. Have it on the bed or have it on a rock in order to get it going. I mean, this thing was huge. And your point earlier, Eric, about ginger balls, retired lieutenant commander from the Navy, he sets off to hike the AT with a pack. And of course he's military, so he's prepared. He doesn't just have one of everything. He's got not just 2 of everything. He's got 3 of everything. He shows up, his pack is, 65, 70 pounds. And he meets up with a kid by the trail named Scrapbook, who is probably 20 years old at the time. And they meet at the trailhead of the AT. And Scrapbook has a pack that probably weighs all of about 13 pounds. And the funniest moment is they look at each other. Ginger Balls looking at Scrapbook with the 12-pound pack, Scrapbook looking at Ginger Balls with the 70-pound pack or 65-pound pack, and they both think to themselves, "Oh, this there's no way this guy's going to survive out there." And just a really funny moment, because I had a chance to talk to each of them, and they are fast friends now. Little did Ginger Balls know, but that was Scrapbook's third long trail. He had done the PCT and the CDT prior, and so he was on his way to become a triple crowner. And this was Ginger Ball's first experience. Ginger Balls is now closer to that lighter weight now. But yeah, Randall, I just took a trip not that long ago. My pack weight, including food and water, was about 25 pounds, and that included the sleep system, shelter system, food and water for a number of days.
I saw that joint podcast with those two, Scrapbook and Ginger Balls. So I actually went back and found the first one you did with Ginger Balls. Yeah, that's an interesting story. But he was carrying like 3 of shit that he definitely should. Like even us grunts would have been like, dude, get that out of here. It's like in the movie Platoon when he's like, you don't need that, you don't need that. But that's one thing. So you mentioned water in your pack weight, so probably a lot of the people following me don't realize when backpackers on YouTube, when they talk about their pack weights, they're usually excluding consumables, food and water.
That's correct.
And so I'm glad you included that. But on that note, one thing I learned as a grunt, so I want to hear if the Marine infantry still teaches this, Brent, but I mentioned this in my backpacker grunt video. The Army has absolutely failed at reinforcing old school survival stuff. So when I started seeing videos of backpackers going out with just little water bottles and then just planning where they're going to get their water from, and then dealing with those challenges, like, oh, this water hole's dry, or this looks like a cesspool, we've got to go to another place. And then they either filter it and purify it or both and move on. I was like, that's cool as shit, man. That's the basic survival stuff I was taught, and then retaught again going through sniper school. And then like the modern soldier, if you put them in the field where they had to gather and purify or filter water, they would be hurting big time. And even some of our advanced guys, you can listen to the story where, you guys know Operation Red Wings, with that Lone Survivor movie was made off of it, where they ruined it. But the Navy SEALs were out there on a mission, got ambushed,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, there's a really cool podcast about the Rangers who went in to go find them. And they're talking about being empty on water. They're out in these mountains of Afghanistan, and they're in an area where it looks just like the Sierra Nevadas. So we're talking about extreme alpine areas, just extreme cliffs. And they're talking about running out of water. And I'm sitting there like, dude, how are you in these green mountains with creeks and tributaries all around and you're running out of water? And then right when I was thinking that, the interviewer was like, did you guys not have a way to purify water? He's like, no. And I'm like, how the hell how are Rangers not taught to carry water purification tablets with them?
Yeah.
So that's a cool thing about the backpacking world, is you guys, you're living on the land as far as that concerns, because you can't carry 10 days worth of water on you. So Brent, are they still teaching this stuff in the Marine infantry, water gathering, purification, and all that?
So I saw your video on that, and yeah, I agreed 100%. I'm thinking about like over the years, and like most of my like survival training that I received was when we went up to Bridgeport and got those classes. Yeah, we got like water purification classes and stuff like that. But generally speaking, no, like you don't get very many classes on like survival stuff at all. Unless you go to one of those specific training centers like Bridgeport Marine Corps Mountain Warfare Training Facility. I will say this though, I saw a white letter from the commandant of the Marine Corps. Well, our previous commandant, he just moved on, but General Berger, and he was talking about Marines need to learn to live off the land, right? Talking about Force Design 2030 and our pacing threat with China, and Marines being on these isolated islands, like we're facing a peer adversary where supply chains are going to be threatened. right? Like the days of GWAT where like pallets and pallets of water and chow delivered, on a routine basis aren't going to be there. Like you might be part of a squad on an island, independent on your own, and you're going to need to forage for food, and purify your own water. So that is one thing that absolutely the Marine Corps is going to be looking at if they haven't already, got the gears turning on that, is making more Marines more resilient and self-aware and stuff like that, and being able to do those survival tasks.
Yeah, that's just. I mean, I think it's the global war on terror. We got stuck in that FOB mentality. So there was water and MREs and everything everywhere. But that's kind of a historical thing. Armies, it's good for traveling armies to kind of supply themselves, because if you have divisions, thousands of 19-year-old kids kind of surviving off the land, that's when you get raping and pillaging, and there's zero local resources left because all the 19-year-olds came through there and were hungry or thirsty.
And we've seen that recently in Ukraine, right? When the Russians first invaded, like, their supply lines were challenged, and what were they doing? They were looting, the local Ukrainian towns and villages, and that's where all those videos and images were saying, it's all obviously propaganda, but it's like, what would we do? We were invading another country and our supplies were, run down. You got a shop right there. Like, of course, those guys are gonna, raid it to get food.
Yeah, I mean, unless you got guys who can figure out where to procure some water, and if you got some rednecks in their unit, they'll go out and hunt some game for you. Get a nice barbecue. So, to sum it up, guys, backpackers need to start carrying guns.
You gonna do it, Doc?
Too much weight. Yeah. And I think another
not a necessary tool.
I know one of the objections, or one of the reasons was that you're worried about the two-legged folks out there, not necessarily the critters. And the hiking community, the through hiking community, the outdoor community is such a supportive one. I know there are some rare cases where there is some violence out on the trail, but that is a rarity. A lot of people looking out for each other. The basic good of people is on full display when you're out in the wilderness, especially when you're going through a trail like the Appalachian Trail, where it is so town adjacent. There are so many towns and cities adjacent to the Appalachian Trail. A lot of people who aren't hikers necessarily come out and they do what's called trail angeling, and they bring jugs of water where maybe there isn't a water source for a long time. They just hand it out and give it away to through hikers, or they set up impromptu barbecue spots, or where they're firing up hamburgers and handing out free food, or they're giving rides to through hikers into town. It's just such an overall positive community that I think that a firearm is not on people's minds when they are signing up to do this.
So yeah, I've seen actually Eric did a video on that, being a trail angel. So does anybody do trail angeling with security in mind? Because when Brent retires, maybe me and him could get into that. Come out there and well, no, I totally get that. Like the community is awesome, mm-hmm. But look at Appalachia. That's a lot of meth and fentanyl. That's a lot of, and look at our area, Coleman. You've been through our area. That last neighborhood you drive through to get up to my place, that is 100% what drugs have done to America. That community. So imagine you're hiking out there, and I know there's some parts of the PCT that kind of are not far from towns either. Pretty much all these murders that happen on these trails, they're not far from the towns. Yeah. So that's most likely not a fellow backpacker doing this. That's some nut job out there, just whatever the hell he's doing out there. But I mean, yeah, Eric, like your area, I'm definitely packing a couple things when we go out there. Just dude, you guys wore masks over a 99% survival rate, so I'm gonna carry guns for my 99% survival rate.
Yeah. Hey, again, if that's what works for you, that's cool. And I'll be happy that they'll be carrying in the event that we've got a lightning bolt of a crazy person.
I'm not helping you. I'm going to throw you your hiking stick. I'm going to help myself and run.
All right, at least I'll have a melee weapon of some kind. I'll bat him off with a trigger bolt.
No, I'm just kidding. I'll save you, dude, and then you can pay me for bringing the gun.
That's right.
I got to throw this out there.
Oh yeah, go.
I got to throw this out there. If again, I don't know backpacker terms, right? So if somebody were to ask me or tell me did you see any trail angels? The first thing that came to my mind was that there was like hookers on the trail. Like from the infantry standpoint, like a trail angel to me would be like hookers that are on the trail, like offering their services while you're backpacking through.
I mean, that could be an option, Doc. In all your through hiker conversations, has anyone ever mentioned that being a trail angel or some trail magic that was offered up?
I have heard some strange stories out there. I would not rule that out.
Hey, I got
trail magic is what they give Brent and Brent Randall. It's trail magic. So that'd be some.
We call them butterflies.
I have a question for you guys. This is a legitimate question. This isn't about trail angels, regardless of which interpretation you take of them. So, like in the infantry, if we're doing a forced march, it's kind of like we have like a routine like method, right? So, like you step off, and then like 10, 15 minutes into the movement, you'll stop. You get a 2-minute gear adjustment break because it's like, hey, you just stepped off. Your gear might be rubbing. You get 2 minutes to adjust your equipment, and then we're stepping off again. Right. And then we're going to do 50 minutes and then rest for, I think, a minute or maybe it's either 5 or 10 minutes. It's 50 and 10. Maybe that's it. So what is your guys' rate of march is what I'm trying to get at.
That is very structured. And I'm not surprised that it's like that in the military. I think, and Eric, feel free to weigh in on this. There's a saying out there, hike your own hike. And everybody's going to hike according to their own capabilities and comfort levels. And so I think the answer to that question is going to change with every person you ask. I typically hit the trail and we're going for, maybe 4 hours at a time before we're breaking for lunch. But then, during those 4 hours, we're taking breaks that could be as simple as a 2-minute breather in the shade. Just to catch our breath and kind of regroup mentally. And then, or it could be, a 10 or a 15-minute break with the pack off, sitting down, just kind of regrouping. So, I mean, it's gonna change for everybody.
Yeah, again, it's very organized for the military. I think we're just sort of on the fly. I will say this, when I went and hiked up with Marty up north in Canada a few years ago, he told me, right off the bat when we started on a 5-day trip, he's like, yeah, I usually stop every hour and take a quick 5 or 10-minute break. But it didn't even come down to that. So you can have sort of a preset idea how often you're going to do it. But I will say this, when I had my son hiking with me quite a bit, I coined the term micro breaks. And that was just you climbing, some steep section, and I needed a quick micro break, which was like 30 seconds, a minute. Jake, my son, would stretch out the micro break. So, but nothing as structured. Just depends on what terrain you're on.
Yeah, and depending on the terrain, we're doing usually like 3 to 4 miles per hour. That could go up or could go down, depending if you're doing a severe uphill or severe downhill, or if it's just flat. And what altitude you're at.
Yeah, I was going to say Doc's a marathon runner, so I don't know if I'm doing 4 miles an hour, if I'm going downhill easily. I got the inertia and the long
gravity.
legs.
Love gravity.
I love gravity too. Long legs and gravity is great for me downhill. But yeah, I'd say on average around, if you're doing an uphill climb, if you're averaging 2.5 miles an hour, that's not bad for me. Again, it depends on the terrain.
That's about how we look at it too. Because like we have, I don't know about the Marines, but the Army has battle staff. That's the people that plan all these missions and usually get us killed. But I got to go to that school, and they actually have calculations for if you have an objective on a map, how long you have to be able to calculate how long it's going to take a squad of 9 infantry guys or a platoon of 30 infantry guys or even a company. You have to be able to calculate all these variables, how long it's going to take that group to get there, including the terrain and everything, so that they can actually meet whatever the mission hit time is. And of course, we never, ever made a hit time. Not once. We're always late because something's always going wrong. But it is kind of a similar thing. But in the Army, we train to just be able to do a 15-minute mile pace. So if you're on gently sloping terrain, nothing crazy, but just kind of light terrain, you should be able to walk 15-minute miles, and that's in whatever loadout we have. So, you know, your 35-pound, you know, basic training weight, that's easy. But then when you get a machine gun and extra ammo and other crap loaded on you, you still got to at least keep up that pace. So you're probably going to be running a lot. But yeah, we kind of calculate things the same. All right, so I think we're at that point where we have not come to head with anything. And what's the movie Burn After Reading? What did we learn from this? I don't fucking know. Whatever the fuck it is, we learn not to do it again.
It was a good discussion. That was what it was.
Yeah, but you know, the similarities remain the same. We can rough it, sleep anywhere, dirty, smelly. We can push through aches and pains. We're used to discomfort and can push through that. I think normal people will call both groups crazy in many cases. And then, of course, even if we're going out to get shot at and do all that, we're both still going out there for the adventure.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, so
there's stuff to be learned from both groups. I mean, that's why they're following you, Randall. Not only are you entertaining, maybe, yeah, you're entertaining, but I like the stuff that I heard from the Army people, from the grunt world, because I felt like there was things that I could apply to my, I don't know, hobby, craft, whatever you want to call it. There's definitely things that we could learn from each other, and it's whatever you take, whatever this discussion provided to 90% of the people on here, which are probably grunts as well. But we can still learn stuff from both groups.
all right, let's go ahead and sum it up then with y'all's final thoughts. Don, go ahead. What you got?
I think there's a lot of overlap. And so I really enjoyed participating in this discussion. I liked hearing your perspective. I liked reading the comments as we went along here. It's really interesting to hear some of the ideas that folks have out there, whether they are accurate or inaccurate. I think that, you know, there is a lot in common between the two groups. And you're right. We both can do things that are unpleasant for a long period of time. We both are dirty, grimy, stinky out there. And, you know, it's all about embracing the suck.
All right, and fellow grunt Brent, what you got to wrap it up?
Oh, I just you know, just to piggyback on what these other guys saying. Obviously, there are some similarities. The biggest is, hey, we don't want to carry excess weight, right? We're going to carry what's needed for the mission. Obviously, with the backpacker role, it's like, hey, my mission is to get from point A to point B. You know, carrying the least amount of shit as humanly possible, that I can survive and make it there, right? Whereas an infantryman is like, hey, I don't want to carry extra shit too, but I need X, Y, Z for the mission, right? Getting there is just the start, right? I need to get there, and then once I get there, that's when the party starts, right? That's when I'm hooking a jab and closing with and destroying the enemy by fire and maneuver. So yeah, a lot of similarities. You know, I think there's things that we can take. We can take those little tips and tricks that, you know, the backpackers utilize in terms of cutting weight in certain aspects, you know, whether that be in field stripping our meals, or, you know, the way they situate their meals to provide certain caloric needs. There's stuff that we could look at, you know, and I think there's some backpacker stuff that they can take from the grunts, right? In the infantry, hey, mental toughness. It's like, hey, we have to take this shit. It's going. Okay, so it's like, it's going regardless. And I think the backpackers can look at that and the way we operate in those terms. And it's like, yeah, fucking suck it up, fucking embrace the suck and make it happen. So I think there's things that they can take from us in that regard. So I enjoyed the conversation. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I agree, man, and I appreciate these guys coming on to have fun with this. So my only thing is, if you're a younger dude serving and you want to learn some stuff outside of your unit, wherever you're stationed, find a local backpacking community, and you go out on some trips, find some like-minded people to go out and hike with, and you'll learn some cool field craft that you probably won't see in your military unit, depending on what the culture's like. So once again, this is Eric Coleman from Coleman Outdoors. That's his YouTube. And then we got Doc from Hiker Trash Radio. Awesome podcast. If you want to go get deeper into that community and watch some awesome talks, check that out. And everybody knows Brent 0331. So, yeah, that's it, guys. Anybody got any alibis?
I just wanted to add, and I'm not trying to kiss Doc's butt here, but it's an very eclectic podcast. It's not just hiker stuff. If you're not a runner, he has runners on there, and it's pretty interesting. So, and other stuff. He's had a variety of stuff. Great.
Thanks. Yeah, he even had me on there. So
That's
He
right.
did. Yeah.
Right.
He had a grunt. Yeah, that.
And he's had other service members on there, people from all walks of life. It's a very interesting podcast. I definitely recommend people go check it out.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that being said, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see everybody in the next one.